GatorChatter.com presents the Oxrageous podcast.
The sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
And here is your host, Aaron Bland.
Well, hello, Gators, and what a wonderful intro. So the coaching debate rages on in the Gator Nation. The only thing we can agree on is that we don't agree on anything. I got information last week, which I already shared with Gator Chatter and tried to spread all over the internet, from someone that I found quite credible, that told me very simply that Hugh Freeze of Ole Miss was the number one target for Jeremy Foley, and that Jeremy Foley was preparing a contract offer that they felt was good enough to be accepted. So, very simple information. I put it out there. And this was last week. And I started a thread about it, and it got a lot of views, a lot of comments. And the vast majority of the comments were positive. Most people felt that Hugh Freeze would be a good hire for Florida. He took over a horrible Ole Miss program. He's built it up. He's recruited well. He's got them extremely competitive. And he could be a great fit with the resources of Florida. That was the general thinking. Then what happens? Ole Miss loses 30-0 to Arkansas. So then what happens is what you'd expect. We don't want him now. He's no good. A decent coach in new offense would never get shut out. Never. It would never happen. They can have him now. We don't want him. Get rid of him. It's an embarrassment we're even talking about it. This, of course, was totally expected and something you expect to see when you're dealing with fans, including myself. Fans are not rational. Fans are not patient. Fans do not think things through. They're emotional and often idiotic. A lot of the early speculation was that Bob Stoops could be the guy, and I really liked the idea of a steady coach, well-respected coach like Bob Stoops coming in to help stabilize the program. But I remember at that time, a couple of weeks ago, Oklahoma was just coming off a loss, so I heard, well, they just lost this week. We don't want this guy now. Oklahoma's 6-3. They're out of the Big 12 race. We don't want Bob Stoops. He's a dinosaur. You know, the last 15 years didn't matter at all. So this is definitely the fun of coach talk during that 1 or 2 month period between an old coach going and a new coach coming in. It drives a lot of people insane. If you run a message board like me, it drives me a little bit insane too, but it brings people to the board and gets them talking. And I get the normal pot shots. Oh, you're just trying to drive traffic to your board, man. Yeah. Can you imagine that? A website owner trying to drive traffic to his board? The nerve of someone like that. The gall of some people. And, of course, they imply that I make this stuff up. I haven't made anything up. That's something I wouldn't do. People are telling me this stuff that claim to be in the know. And they might be full of it. But I'm going to report it and get people talking. Well, we've heard about 50 names. Some of them a pipe dream, like Chip Kelly and Jim Harbaugh. Some on much lower tiers than I think Florida should be looking, like Doc Holliday, for example. But from what little I know, it's coming down to the two names, Hugh Freeze and Bob Stoops. And I know Pat Dooley just came out and said Bob Stoops is off the list. I hear from someone he's off the list. I hear from someone else he's on the list. I heard from someone that it's only about money for Bob Stoops. He would come in a heartbeat if the money was right. Now, I know he's paid a lot of money from Oklahoma, so I can imagine the money would have to be quite high to get Bob Stoops. But from what I'm told, he's willing to come and has been for a while now. Pat Dooley named this whole list of coaches that aren't coming. One person's name, though, that wasn't on his list of the coaches not coming is Hugh Freeze. There's a lot of smoke around Hugh Freeze. I had been told after the Missouri game that a quote-unquote slam dunk hire had been reached out to and he had been receptive to coming. At the time, I assumed it was Bob Stoops, but it might have been Hugh Freeze. I don't know. But if you're asking my take, I think Hugh Freeze is going to be the next head coach of the University of Florida. And when he's formally named the head coach, you're going to see quite a bit of weeping and gnashing of teeth. And people are going to dissect his every loss, his entire career. But it's not always about wins and losses. Is the guy a good fit for UF? And I happen to think that he is. I think he's recruited extremely well. I think he has a pretty good understanding and cares a lot about offense and defense. And to appease so many of the Muschamp apologists, I think that Hugh Freeze is a nice guy. It doesn't matter to me, but evidently it matters to a lot of people. I think Hugh Freeze is a really, really nice guy. You know, most people believe Alabama is the best team in the nation. and that they've got as good a shot as any at running the table and winning it all, and I'm right there. I don't see why they wouldn't or couldn't. But this Ole Miss team beat Bama, and it may very well end up being Bama's only loss. That one game alone shows how far Ole Miss football has come since Hugh Freeze took over a few years ago. But college football is funny in that you can go from the penthouse to the outhouse in just a few weeks. Ole Miss was at the top of the mountain. They lost 3 straight SEC games. And not only are Florida fans souring on having Freeze, but the Ole Miss fans have soured a bit on Freeze. Amazingly, I was actually looking at their boards, and a lot of them think Florida should take him. We don't want him anymore. So Ole Miss fans go from number 1 to we don't want him anymore in 3 weeks. It's a perfect illustration as to why fan message boards are not for everyone. There are no rules. It's Thunderdome. And you have to be willing to chuckle at this stuff, or you'll lose your mind. And we've had several over the years flip out. They never just leave. They flip out and go into this long diatribe, cussing everyone out into the sun, and declare that they're leaving. They always like to go out like that. Like we're going to cry and beg them to stay, you know? Anyway, whoever the new coach is, there's going to be a lot of people that don't like it. We already know that. Bill Belichick was named. I can already picture the thread. He's a has-been. He's too old. We could have done better. So everybody get ready for that. But I would not be disappointed in the hire of Hugh Freeze. I think he brings a much better resume to the table than Will Muschamp did. He's much less of a risk than Will Muschamp. Speaking of Will Muschamp, can you already see what's going to happen if Florida manages to win this week? How many people are going to crawl out of the woodwork and tell us that we should have kept them? We jumped the gun. Muschamp's getting a raw deal. He should have stayed. Of course, we've heard the same things about Ron Zook. Ron Zook got a raw deal. And it was 10 years ago now that Ron Zook ended his career with a win at Doak. Here we are 10 years later in the exact same situation. So get ready for that. There's definitely going to be a group that come forward and say, we really screwed up by letting Muschamp go. Look what we would have had next year under this man. It's normally at night. You know, the freaks come out at night. So, on to the game on Saturday. It's a big one. It's not really a big one for our season. It's not going to really make any difference. Florida already wrapped up a bowl game appearance last week, and it's not like Muschamp's job is hanging in the balance. That's already been taken care of. But it's a big one in that the entire nation is watching this game. The big positive of Florida State's run with this troublemaker at quarterback is that it has turned the whole country on to what Gator fans knew for years, and that's that FSU is an evil empire, and they'll do anything to win. Anything. They've always been this way. They were this way under Bowden. The difference is Bowden was smarter than Jimbo and how to handle it to the media. Bowden could do his little smile and his good old boy thing, and boys gonna be boys, you know. Jimbo can't do that. Jimbo just forges ahead and says stupid things without thinking them through. And every time one of his players does something they shouldn't do, he runs right to the microphone and tells us how his players are innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. I don't know who handles PR at Florida State, but they should be fired. It has been a disaster. No one wants to see this team continue to win. And speaking of that, Saturday Down South did a public service announcement on this. Don't know if you've heard it, but if you haven't, here it is.
It's time to stop ignoring it.
It's time to stop pretending it isn't real.
It's time to stop.
The Florida State Seminoles.
How bad has it gotten?
They made America root for Miami.
For Miami? Nobody roots for Miami, not even Miami fans.
Each week, someone steps up and gives us hope.
Only for them to steal that hope away.
Criminals. Jameis Winston says they like winning. But we know that isn't true. What they like is crushing the hopes and dreams of the people.
And they hate puppies.
They hate puppies.
He yelled bad words at the student union.
I read what he said.
Now I'm scarred.
Now I'm scarred.
Now I'm scarred. For life.
They're a bunch of bullies.
Always beating up on the weak.
Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse,
Clemson.
the Citadel, of all people.
They were ready?
It's time to end this reign.
27 games of tyranny.
Of oppression.
Of autographed memorabilia.
It's time to do what needs to be done.
It's time to keep Florida State out of the college football playoff. Help us, Florida Gators.
Help us, Florida Gators.
Help us, Florida Gators.
Help us, Florida Gators. You're our only hope.
Doesn't that say it all? The country is pulling for UF. The country is pulling for Will Muschamp. And this is Will Muschamp's chance, his one chance, to go out on a good note. Give the Florida Gators a gift after 4 years of winning nothing. Ironically, Will Muschamp was the last coach to beat Florida State. So wouldn't it be great if he did it again? I mean, I think it's, 6 times this year that Florida State has come from behind to win? 6 times. And week in, week out, everybody watches it and watches as they get every bounce at the end of every game. 27 games in a row now. So many have speculated that the football gods must be setting them up for a huge fall, but we haven't seen it yet. What kind of game is Will Muschamp going to coach? This is his last game at Florida. There is no tomorrow. We're not even playing for a bowl game. There's no reason, absolutely no reason, for Will Muschamp to coach not to lose, to be conservative, to be himself. There's no reason for him to be himself. We need to try to win this game. Let's trust Treon Harris. Let's let the pass set up the run. Let's try that for once. And we got to go in that cesspool and listen to that stupid chant over and over and over. We silenced that chant 2 years ago. I really want to do it again. The Gator Nation's been divided for a long time now. They're not divided on Saturday. Everybody outside of the FSU fans is pulling for the Gators. So it's big. Emotionally, it's big. Florida's taken a back seat to too many other teams, too many other Florida teams. They need to take that back. There's really no reason for me to break down the game farther than that. We're down to the very end of the Will Muschamp era, and we're going to have a lot more to talk about in terms of how this team will look going forward after we hear who they're going to hire. But this is a great week. This is Thanksgiving week. Most people get a lot of time off. You spend it with your family. You get to watch NFL football on Thanksgiving Day with your feet up. It's fantastic. Then you got Florida State on Saturday. This is a great week. And since it's Thanksgiving, in the spirit of the holiday, I just want to tell everyone out there that listens to this podcast or comes to Gator Chatter that I'm very thankful for you. Because neither one of them would exist if people didn't participate. When I started Gator Chatter, I didn't have a lot of high expectations. I had hopes. But it has exceeded those expectations. And it continues to grow because we offer the best conversation on Florida sports on the internet. No holds barred stuff. We're fortunate to have a lot of smart people that know what they're talking about. And the ones that don't know what they're talking about are still entertaining to us, so they serve a purpose as well. But I think it's a nice mixture of smart people, idiots, clowns, dummies, comedians, trolls. It's a great melting pot of personalities. So I just want to say thank you very much for your contributions, and I am very thankful for it personally. And as usual, if anyone has any recommendations or advice on how to make this podcast or Gator Chatter better for that matter, shoot me an email at oxrageous@oxrageous.com. I really hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and I really hope my next podcast will be a celebratory one after we kick some Knoll butt. It would be a fantastic way to usher in the new era. Thanks very much for listening, and go Gators.